So a quick one, because last night on Friday Night SmackDown, we saw the return of WWE Hall of Famer, the Rated R superstar himself, Edge. He made his shocking return and attacked Roman Reigns in the main event segment of the show. Now, WWE Hall of Famer Edge returned to SmackDown last night. The show on Fox closed with the Universal Champion Roman Reigns giving his State of the Universal Championship address, which of course came after his victory over last Friday's Hell in a Cell match against Rey Mysterio. Now, Paul Heyman spoke during the main event segment and talked about how Reigns has essentially taken out the entire division in less than a year, naming the likes of Edge, The Fiend Bray Wyatt, Braun Strowman, Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan, and the Mysterios. Heyman then said they were being forced to do something they'd never done before because they had no other choice, as there's nobody else left to challenge Roman Reigns. That's when the music hit You Think You Know Me, and out came Edge to a big Thunderdome pop, because there's nobody there still, of course. Now, this was Edge's first appearance since the WrestleMania 37 main event, which saw Reigns retain over Daniel Bryan and Edge in a triple threat match. Edge rushed to the ring and brawled with Roman Reigns, sending him back out of the ring. Edge delivered a flying clothesline from the apron and then slammed Reigns into the announce table over and over again. Edge brought it back into the ring, but Reigns met him with a Superman punch. I thought, I'll just stop it there, but I just thought, it isn't lost on me. It so isn't lost on me. When Reigns hit that Superman punch on Edge, my first thought straight away was, I can't believe Edge is taking bumps. I don't know why that just jumped into my head, but I don't know. It still is really surreal to me to see Edge wrestling again. I know it's been over a year at this point, but just seeing him there taking a bump and all that, I just thought, oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. I know that's just a bit random, but it just still is crazy to me. Anyway, Reigns went to use a chair, but Edge stopped him with a spear. Edge then placed the chair under Reigns' head and brought another chair in, but Jimmy Uso knocked him off the apron and continued the attack inside at ringside. Edge fought back and sent Uso into the steel ring steps. Edge also then put Uso through the barrier with a spear. Edge returned to the ring, but Heyman and Reigns had already retreated to the stage at this point. Edge then yelled out and declared, if Reigns wants him, he's right here. Now, this was certainly a big surprise. I mean, obviously it was a big surprise. It was recently reported that Edge would be returning to SmackDown to work SummerSlam as a babyface, likely in a match against Seth Rollins. He's also scheduled for several upcoming shows in the month of July, which of course is when WWE returns to touring. Now, this is fascinating because, again, I think everyone obviously expected Edge to return. Not tonight, or last night rather, on SmackDown. People didn't expect that. The expectation was that July 16th episode of SmackDown, that's the one that's going to be loaded up. That's the one that's going to probably have John Cena on it, maybe Becky Lynch. You know, who knows, a plethora of other stars. It's going to be the return to touring for WWE. The following weekend, or that Sunday after that event, that's Money in the Bank. That's the first pay-per-view since WWE's return to touring as well. And the expectation would be that Edge would return on that SmackDown. Probably would shoot his angle with Seth Rollins. That would begin the build to SummerSlam. Edge and Rollins faces at SummerSlam. We didn't expect to see Edge as early as we saw him. Certainly not last night on SmackDown on Fox. The feeling now is, certainly watching this, is that it's going to be Edge versus Reigns at Money in the Bank. I think that feels like inevitable, right? I mean, Paul Heyman wasn't exactly lying in his promo that he did last night on SmackDown. Who is there left? There is nobody left. There is absolutely nobody left. And I think the idea is, knowing when the draft is coming up, knowing that the draft is coming up at the end of August after SummerSlam, if you're going to map out what Roman Reigns has left to do before the brands are shaken up and names are moved elsewhere to Raw, to SmackDown, maybe even to NXT, I think the expectation now is that Reigns will face Edge at Money in the Bank, which he'll win, probably because of interference by Seth Rollins, and that will spin off into Edge versus Rollins at SummerSlam. That then leaves Reigns open to face John Cena at SummerSlam. Reigns retains at SummerSlam once again, and then the rosters are shaking up in the draft, and then Reigns can have a plethora of new opponents to face on SmackDown. I think that's the most likely situation. You have to give credit to WWE. I think you have to give credit to WWE because WWE at this point in existence is notorious, absolutely notorious for not being able to keep things quiet. I mean, I don't want to make it trivial, but yesterday we had a bunch of talent released from WWE, and the story broke that they were going to be released before the announcements were even made, you know, by the talents themselves. WWE is awful, even in the Thunderdome era and even in the Performance Center era, when there aren't live fans in attendance, when there aren't people actively in the nearby area watching people come in. There aren't people at the airports. There are not people hanging outside the arena to see who gets shuttled in and out, all that kind of stuff. WWE is terrible still at keeping surprises. I think even the Roman Reigns surprise I was fortunate, I suppose, to be part of a group chat last year that before he made his return at SummerSlam, word got out that he was going to appear at SummerSlam. Now, nobody broke the story, but people were aware of it. As far as I can see, nobody was aware that Edge was coming back last night. There wasn't any stories, there wasn't any leaks, there wasn't anything. Nobody knew that Edge was going to return. They kept it a secret. I guess the way... I was going to say that I guess the way they kept it a secret is that just he was probably backstage and people thought he wasn't going to show up. But that's not true either, because look at what's happened the last couple of weeks, just last week alone, or the last 2 weeks alone. Becky Lynch, Karrion Kross, Bronson Reed, they were all backstage at the Thunderdome. Ric Flair was backstage at the Thunderdome last week. And every time a person is backstage, it gets reported, it gets leaked out. So-and-so, they're backstage at the Thunderdome. That could mean that they have plans for them on Raw or SmackDown or whatever tonight. We didn't get any reports about that. When it came to Edge last night. So credit to WWE, credit to Edge, credit to whoever kept that quiet, because it's not very often we get that. And it was a legitimate surprise. It was a legitimate surprise watching it last night and seeing Edge come out. Nobody expected that. And it's exciting for Money in the Bank, because that's where it's going to be leading. And I think it's going to be leading to a busy summer for Edge. I mentioned this before, and I don't know if this really correlates here. Again, this is more speculation on my part, I'll be honest here. But I mentioned before that obviously Edge is contracted to a certain amount of appearances and matches per year. I don't have the exact amount to hand right now, but he's contracted to a certain amount of matches and appearances per year. Now, obviously, last year, they had way more plans for Edge after the greatest wrestling match ever against Randy Orton. It was probably going to be a final match against Randy Orton at SummerSlam last year. That was probably the plan. Obviously, Edge got injured, he tore his triceps. Now, we've seen what happens with WWE in terms of contracts, whereby if you're injured, they can add that time on. They can essentially freeze your contract or add the time on you spent on the shelf onto your contract. I do wonder, and maybe this is why Edge has made so many appearances this year, because people might look at it and say, man, Edge is burning through these appearances, especially considering WWE is returning to touring later on this year. I don't know if this is accurate or not. Again, this is speculation, but logically, you could say that maybe it's a situation whereby WWE have got all of these appearances, they've got all of these matches that they didn't have last year, whether it's just 2 matches, whether it's a handful of appearances, they've got these extra matches and appearances that they didn't have last year, which has actually allowed them, fortuitously, to have extra Edge this year, if you will, in WWE. And I think Edge versus Roman Reigns, I'm all over it. I absolutely love it. You know, we spoke about this before when we spoke about Edge versus Rollins potentially at SummerSlam later this year as well. When Edge returned in 2021, the really exciting thing about that was the people he's never faced before. The Seth Rollinses, the Roman Reigns, the Bray Wyatts, those names, the names that he's never touched before, that's exciting. And frankly, there was a little bit of pushback initially when Randy Orton was listed as Edge's first opponent, because it was kind of, we have seen it. We have seen that before. Saw it when they were rated RKO, saw it when they feuded in 2010 on Monday Night Raw. We've seen it. And I think there was a bit of concern of, you know, the great thing about bringing someone back like an Edge, who essentially is from a previous generation, and just dropping him into the current generation. The exciting thing is these dream matches, these hypothetical scenarios that you could only dream up in your head a couple of years ago, thinking, man, it would be great to have Edge versus Roman Reigns, or man, it would be great to have Edge versus Seth Rollins, or man, it would be great to have Edge versus whoever. List the opponent, you know, fill in the blank, if you will. So Edge versus Reigns, that's the matches. That's the kind of matches I wanted to see when Edge returned at the Royal Rumble in 2020. That's what I want to see. That's exciting, and that's a main event. Money in the Bank's a big event anyway. Money in the Bank's a big event anyway, just for the Money in the Bank ladder matches, of course. But Money in the Bank's a big event this year because obviously it's the first pay-per-view since returning to touring. You've got the Money in the Bank ladder matches, and now you've got a main event of Edge versus Roman Reigns. That's box office. That's something to sell tickets. That's something to sell, you know, streams, or what do you call it, sign-ups to Peacock or the WWE Network or whatever. That's a big money match. That's one of the bigger matches WWE can promote right now. Obviously, the biggest is Roman Reigns versus John Cena. We're getting that in August at SummerSlam. But if you're going to scale back, what are the other really big matches you can do right now? And right up there is Edge versus Roman Reigns. It's a match we thought we were going to get at WrestleMania. So if you're going to Money in the Bank, if you've got a ticket, lucky you, because you're getting what was originally planned at one point to be the WrestleMania 37 main event. Now, plans changed because Daniel Bryan worked his way into it, and there was a feeling at the time, and I don't know if this will be the case going forward, but there certainly was a feeling at the time, and these reports are out there, there was a feeling at the time that Vince McMahon thought Edge looked old. And he looked, he was hobbling around, and he had grey in his beard, and he had grey in his hair, and Vince McMahon hates that kind of stuff. That's why we have Goldberg continuously be photoshopped to have a brown goatee when he doesn't. If you have eyes, you can see that he doesn't. It was the same with Edge. He was told by Vince McMahon, dye your hair, dye your beard, and suddenly, in the build-up to WrestleMania, Edge became about 3 different shades of blonde on his face, on his hair, and on his beard. But see, I thought he looked great. I thought he looked great last night on SmackDown. I've never thought he didn't look great, by the way. It's just one of those weird Vince McMahon-isms that he hates the look of being old. I mean, just look at him. Look at his appearance at WrestleMania this year. The guy doesn't like looking old. That's why he's got, the eyebrows painted on and all that kind of stuff. It's a bit alarming. Nevertheless, Edge versus Roman Reigns, that's a big match. That's a big match. I really liked the angle last night. I thought the segment was good. If I'm really looking ahead, and time will tell how this plays out over the course of the next few weeks as we get to Money in the Bank, but if we're really looking at how this plays out, I think Jey Uso plays into it somehow. Of course, you had Jimmy Uso come to Roman Reigns' defense last night. I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, going into Money in the Bank, there's 2 outs there. Edge isn't winning the Universal Championship, by the way. That might be the only criticism of this match, of this story, is that there is no way Edge wins the Universal title. That's just not happening. That isn't happening whatsoever, because Reigns isn't losing any time soon, and they wouldn't put the title on Edge because, he's part-time, and he's not going to be around all the time. Especially returning to touring, you need the champ. You need the champ on all of the shows. So Edge isn't winning the title. I see a situation whereby either Jey Uso makes his grand return, and that's what allows Roman Reigns to retain the Universal Championship. Jimmy, Jey, Roman, they're all finally aligned. The bloodline, the heel bloodline, the family, whatever you want to call them, they're finally aligned. They cost Edge the Universal Championship. Roman Reigns retains, and who's the only person that can overcome Roman Reigns and the family? That would be Super Cena himself, John Cena, at SummerSlam. The other scenario I can see, which I think is actually more likely, is Seth Rollins getting involved and costing Edge the Universal Championship. We saw him on last night say that he does have desires to go after the Universal Championship. Perhaps he looks at Edge and goes, no, if there's going to be anyone that takes the Universal Championship away from Roman Reigns, it's not going to be you, it's not going to be anyone else, it's not going to be John Cena, it's going to be me. And it's going to be Seth Rollins versus Edge at SummerSlam. 7 years in the making, goes all the way back to that New Year's Eve episode of Monday Night Raw in 2014, when Seth Rollins threatened to paralyze, to break Edge's neck, to get the authority back. That story's built in. That's a big match for SummerSlam as well. I think it possibly could tease a possible alliance between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, which is something I've spoken about on the channel here extensively, realistically, over the course of the last few months. I mentioned that family doesn't have to be by blood, remember. Family doesn't have to be by blood. We could just see the 2021 version of the 2-man power trip, right? The 2-man power trip with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H. Maybe in 2021, it's Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins on Friday Night SmackDown. That would certainly be interesting as well. So there's lots of different avenues to go down. Again, I thought the angle last night was great. Really enjoyed the angle. Really just liked the fact that Edge came out, he was furious. He didn't do the pose, but the pyro went off anyway. I like those little touches. I'm a bit over the spear through the barricade, if I'm going to be brutally honest with you. We've seen that, I mean, so often. So often, even when it's Edge. And again, I bring it back, and we'll wrap things up here, but I bring it back to, when he hit the Superman punch on Edge and he took the bump, and I went, I still can't believe Edge is taking bumps. When he took the bump through the barricade, rather, I still go, be careful. please be careful. But look, Reigns versus Edge, that's a money match. That's a big time match. That's a match to sell tickets. That's box office. That really kicks off. I mean, if you're looking at SmackDown, that's SmackDown kicking off the return to touring, and that Money in the Bank pay-per-view being the first touring pay-per-view, that's the way to headline it. Edge, Roman Reigns. Initially, a match that was deemed big enough for the main event of WrestleMania. We're now getting at Money in the Bank. That's big-time booking by WWE. So very exciting. I think credit to everyone for keeping it a secret. Credit to everyone for pulling it off last night. And very, very exciting. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Edge returning last night on SmackDown? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved with the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Get up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.